All righty, boys and girls, welcome back to a finally jubilant episode, truly jubilant episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show. We are your illustrious hosts. I am Alex Paquero. This is Christopher Juicy Thighs Over Breasts Condit, your American villain voices, as always, serving up the lukewarmiest of lukewarm opinions. Please go follow, like, rate, review, subscribe, all the places below our faces. We are here to recap what was a great win over West Ham. We'll talk a little bit in a minute about some housekeeping that we can expect over the international break. I'm just trying to keep talking so that one, Chris doesn't choke and die while trying to speak, but also because I want to prevent him from being able to explain his nickname. And so just Chris Juicy Eyes Over Breast Condit continues to live on in the internet forever.
I'm not going to explain that one. We can let that sit. Anybody have any questions, they can reach out.
Into those DMs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we used to joke in the early days of this pod about we will turn down no advertisers, including OnlyFans girls, and so this may be our parlay into that. What do you think, Chris?
I don't think so. But yeah, I hope you're doing well, Alex. I know I am. It's been a great weekend here in North Carolina. Even if you can hear in my voice that what we call yellow season is upon us, when the cars and streets and trees and everything is just coated in a thin layer of pollen, and it's quite unpleasant for about 6 weeks here. Other than that, we're doing great.
It's OnlyFans for trees season out here.
Yeah, when I first moved down here, I was not prepared for like the clouds of yellow dust that blow across the sky when it's windy. But that happens here in the southeast of the United States, gang. So come on down. You can live like this.
You can hear it in Chris's voice. I don't know how I've been spared thus far, but I'm doing okay for now. You're right. It's been warm. It's been sunny. College basketball March Madness is in full swing, and there have been some really excellent games. Very exciting tournament. Actually had some upsets this year, which I feel like last year there was an incredible dearth of upsets. It's kind of boring tournament, but this certainly has not been that. So yeah, overall, Chris, and I think a few of our listeners know about my annual Stout Day that I do with friend of the pod, Jeff Webb, and my neighbor Scott, and a few other folks. That was yesterday. Opened up 10 beautiful bottles of great beer while we watched the tournament. Had some great snacks, ate some good cookies. So, good time had by all, to quote my old boxing coach, I guess.
Nice.
And Chris, the good times did not continue overnight. Nico did not sleep well last night. But the good times did roll into this morning for Aston Villa with what was, I think I can comfortably say, Chris, Aston Villa's best performance of 2026.
Well, I think so. It was the game that we all were hoping for in the long run here, because you and I were both not very confident going into this contest, but this was what we've wanted to see from Villa for some time now, where it was they were clearly the better team for the entirety of the contest. It was never, I wouldn't say never in doubt, because you started to wonder at the end of the first half whether or not they would rue not getting one of the 4 or 5 goals they could have put in the first half. But there was never a point where you were concerned about West Ham really threatening goal. They only had a couple of looks at it. It was a dominating performance, and it's one that was sorely needed, I think.
I think you're right. Honestly, you make a good point by saying that it was a comprehensive 90-minute domination by Aston Villa, and I really definitely best performance of 2026. You could probably struggle to think of a game all season long that Villa have looked that good for 90 minutes. I feel like even when Villa were on that winning run, we would fall behind in a lot of those games to start. We would talk about how, Villa would be good for the first half and then like bad for 20, 30 minutes because they'd be conserving energy, and then they'd like come on strong at the end or something like that. So yeah, there are probably a surprising dearth of games where Villa truly put together 90 full minutes, and yet this was one of them. And the cynics will look at West Ham's position in the table and say, well, these are the teams that you should be beating. You can't get too high because of the nature of what that team has been this year. Look at you, you're in fourth. Like, why are you celebrating being an 18th place team like this? But context matters. We say this all the time on the pod. Context matters. And the context of this game is that Villa are, 3 weeks removed from getting absolutely raked by Wolves, absolutely smacked around the park by what at the time was one of the worst Premier League teams to ever exist. Now they might not even finish in 20th the way they're on the tear to finish the season, but still. And this West Ham team, we said it in the preview, was a team in form. That they had lost two of 12. 2 of 12. So, that's a good outfit. That's a team that's fighting. That's a team that's scrapping. And we talked about how Nuno crafts his teams to play well against what this iteration of Villa do. And so the fact that Villa were able to find a way to not only win, but win while looking really good and get some good performances out of players cannot be glossed over in any way, shape, or form. Now, we're not going to get so high and say, well, maybe we'll save it for cold water. But, there are people saying, oh, Villa have turned the corner. Like, it's a wrap. We're good. Look at the results around us. Like, we're set. We're the lukewarmest of lukewarm shows. I don't know that we're going to go that far. But at least today, we can be very happy. We're going into the international break confident.
Absolutely. It was the exact result that Villa needed. And there was a reason that we were concerned going into this game. West Ham had been playing very well and looked a threat at least to claw a point, if not take all three. You and I both predicted that Villa would lose this game. So I think that you have to consider that when you're considering the result, that Villa took a team, even if they are in 18th place, a team that was in pretty good form, and just beat the brakes off of them. So you got to be happy about that.
So let's talk about how they did it, Chris, and we'll start with the lineup. Ross Barkley comes back in to start in the middle. Powell gets the start again in central defense, but otherwise, what I did not want to happen, Unai Emery did. He swapped 3 out of the 4 back line, right? So Cash is in, Konsa comes back in, Luka Dean comes in. Really good to see Cash back. And then something else that we've been asking for, Morgan Rogers wide left. He actually did move McGinn to the 10 spot to create a little bit more balance there with Jadon Sancho and no surprise, Ollie Watkins up top.
I was pleased with it because I think it was pretty well the lineup that I thought was going to go, with maybe an exception of, I don't think I had Sancho starting. But I thought the back four played extremely well. They weren't under much threat for much of the game, but it really gave Dean and Cash a lot of room to come forward, and that created a lot of width. So even if it's using the right and left back almost as wing back type players to create width, I'm good with it as long as we're creating width, because that is what caused problems for West Ham. And the pressure for West Ham started almost immediately. It looked like Villa came out of the gates flying, and West Ham kind of started in the mud.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Nuno got this one wrong, or Unai Emery figured out what Nuno was going to do and how to attack it with that width, and I mean, probably shocked everybody by actually using it through Matty Cash and Luka Dean. But not only did Villa use the width, they used it with a pace to their play. Unlike the past few weeks, Villa were really trying to not only play through the lines, but also switch the play from side to side. It would go all the way to Luka Dean, back through Ross Barkley in the middle, all the way out to Matty Cash on the right-hand side, really kind of hugging the touchline. And what that enabled us to do is, in possession, Nottingham Forest were using 3 at the back. So Freddie Potts would kind of drop in between the center backs. And so you'd have that gap on the sides. They tried to then flip to defend in what I felt like was more of a traditional back four. But I think we've seen this happen to Villa in the past. They got exploited in the transition between those two. They couldn't quite switch from the 3 to the 4 quick enough as Villa were attacking the wings and in behind with so much effectiveness.
I mean, I also think that just having John McGinn back in there is such a difference for Villa because he's such a steadying presence, and nobody can hold the ball in the midfield as well as he does. Whether he's playing centrally or whether he's out on the wing, he's just excellent at using his body, and we all know exactly what I'm talking about. To shield the ball and play the ball on the turn, and there were a lot of opportunities for Aston Villa because of the width across the pitch. There was a lot more space in the middle for the midfielders to operate.
Yeah, I really for a Nuno team, I'm surprised at how open West Ham seemed to kind of be played through in the middle, and really it quickly became apparent. But for a defensive masterclass from Mavropanos, this probably would have been 3-4-0.
I mean, he stopped at least 2 goals that I can think of that were going in.
A header off one corner, maybe 2 headers to stop corners.
Yeah.
He had the tackle on Ollie Watkins that was initially ruled a penalty, I think correctly, then reviewed and rescinded. Yeah, he really, what a player of the day.
That was, I mean, in slow-mo, that was an excellent tackle. So it was ultimately the right call. But I can 100% see, and you and I were texting during the game.
Yeah.
I said I can 100% see why that was ruled a penalty, because in real time it looked like a penalty. I think
it looked so dumb from behind.
Yeah.
But he got around.
I think he got his leg around Watkins and got the ball. I think it was ultimately the correct call to not have the penalty. But if we were to implement the Alex Picaro way of doing VAR, that would have stayed a penalty, because in real time that still looked like a pen. So anyway, but ultimately the right call, and it didn't matter anyway because Villa got the second. Yeah. So, but I think that all of this came together at a great time, and Villa, like you said, probably played their best 90 of the year for sure, if not the season.
Yeah. So I guess a couple of things, Chris. So Villa play with width, something we've been calling for a while. It works. Villa play with tempo and passing through the lines, something we've been calling for a while. It works. Villa play with a little bit more fluidity in attack. So a couple different opportunities actually came because Sancho had the freedom to float all the way left. Again, overload on that side with him, Morgan Rogers, Luka Dean, and Ross Barkley, and we get a couple great crosses in. I think one of the early ones was missed header by Amadou Onana that just went wide right of the goal. These are things that we've been calling for so long. It was nice to see that Unai Emery kind of recognized this. But what I want to put a finer point on, or who I want to give plaudits to, Austin McPhee, masterclass in this one.
Yeah, he really, his corners and set pieces were really well executed. It felt like every single corner that Villa had was a real threat, and the goalie had something to deal with, or Mavropanos had something to deal with, because like we talked about, he saved at least a couple. And the set piece on which John McGinn scored was, I mean, what a great setup that was, to have essentially 4 players around the outside of the penalty area, and that ball to McGinn, I think it was from Sancho. Was he the one who fed him? Was letter perfect, and West Ham were not ready for that, because prior to that, the previous 2 set pieces were straight at the goalkeeper, and so everybody was bunching in to cover the goal, and it left McGinn with a tremendous amount of space. Now, McGinn could not have hit that ball any better, so it does take that, but the setup is what allowed for that, so you have to give McPhee credit for that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
right. And I want
right.
his yellow card rescinded, for the record. I want that on record.
I'm really glad that you said that it was a product of what came before, because that's the chess match that you can play as a set piece coach, as a manager, that maybe doesn't get as much light shined on it as the individual well-run set pieces, but more that Villa had 3 or 4 corners at that point where they were just putting every guy and the ball on the goalkeeper's head every single time. And so you create that fear that then means the defense is going to recede, that then opens up that long shot for John McGinn. If you're not doing that, if you're running more traditional corners to that point, I don't know that McGinn's that open to take that shot for that set piece. So that's something that you're thinking a few moves ahead when you're doing all those corners. The other thing that I want to call out, though, is Villa have scored from, I think that it's either the third most set pieces or the third most corners in the league, one of the two.
It's third most set pieces. It is.
Third most set pieces. So Arsenal is 1, Spurs is 2, and then Villa are third. And yet this is something that Villa really haven't taken advantage of yet this year is getting everybody in and around and being really physical with the goalie. This is something that Arsenal do to perfection. They every single week are challenging the referee to say, we are just going to beat the S out of the goalie. Call us, try it, call us on it. And they don't. And they score all these goals off of it. And we've seen a lot of teams adopt, Arsenal and others, adopt a similar approach with Emi Martinez and with Marco Bizot in a variety of different games. And so it surprised me that Villa have been so successful with their set pieces without even opening this door, this locker yet. So this is something that we're going to see over the last 7 games of the season, which I think we should, until the Premier League makes some declaration that says we're going to start calling it.
They're going to have
advantage of it.
Yeah, they're going to have to at some point because nobody wants to see this, No. But still, it was, and I can't say enough about John McGinn striking that ball. I said it already, but that, like, the way he just walked onto that ball and hit it was the stuff of dreams, to be honest with you. And it made you feel a lot better as a Villa fan to get the early lead, because that's something that really hasn't happened, certainly not recently. And from there, it was just a matter of hoping, like I said, getting a little nervous because there were opportunities that Villa did not finish in the first half, and you just were a little bit worried that would come back to bite.
Yeah, and that was something. I mean, listen, I was scared of it myself. I think I texted you, we're going to regret not putting this game away as the game went to half. That was less a fear of anything that was happening with the play on the field and just knowing what Villa have been over the course of this calendar year, and that when you live life on the edge with just 1 goal up, all it takes is one guy who gets in behind and beats the offside trap, right? One ricochet off a corner or something of that sort that can ultimately kind of flip the game around, and we know kind of how fragile Villa have been. So we're really grateful that didn't happen. In my opinion, though, Chris, I'm wondering what you thought. I think Villa were almost helped by Nuno Espirito Santo in this. The halftime subs that he made really confused me. Bringing on Callum Wilson, who, sure, he had a yard of pace back in the day, but all the injuries that he's had to his knees, to his legs, whatever, not the quickest striker, more of a poacher now. Bringing him on for Tati Castellanos, who a couple different times I felt like was just a half yard away from making the right time to run, getting on the end of a couple crosses. He won a header over Ezri Konsa that just went wide. I don't know why you bring him off the pitch. I felt like he was the only chance that West Ham had of getting a goal and getting back into this one.
I thought that was a strange sub as well. I thought that it was interesting that Nuno went so early to Callum Wilson. And I agree with you. I don't think it made a lot of sense. And it certainly didn't help West Ham much, if at all, in the second half, because there was about 10 minutes where West Ham threatened, if that many, where West Ham threatened goal. And beyond that, I mean, it was a very comfortable 45 minutes in the second half for Aston Villa.
Yep, totally agree. Honestly, I don't really have a lot to talk about it in the second half. I guess Yuri's back. Let's talk a little bit about Ollie Watkins getting that goal, though.
Yeah, so I actually I was happy to see it, and once again, we're going to hope that he kicks on from here. I want to give him a lot of credit because I've been extremely critical of him, and who hasn't, but in recent weeks and months. But I want to give him credit for his positioning on that play, because I think that he read that the keeper was going to his left, and there was a chance for a rebound, and he saw it perfectly and put his body in the right position and made great contact with the ball on a difficult play to put it over top of the keeper and roof it pretty much. So I thought it was a well taken goal. It looked good, and maybe this England snub will spur him on. I have a hard time calling it a snub because that like snub makes it sound like he would deserve to be in the England squad, and nothing about his play this year would tell you that. So, but still a great goal, well taken, and an excellent job of getting himself in position to play that ball.
Yeah, I agree. That was real striker's instinct of Ali Abold to be right on top of that rebound, uses pace, uses strength to be the first one to it, and like you said, lifted over the goalie. So bravo to him. I thought he was decent in his overall performance today. You know, I'm not. He probably gets an 8 out of 10 or so just for getting the goal, but goal aside, I would say he was probably like a 6 or 7, which is honestly better than the 3 or 4 that he's been in the past weeks. He certainly was trying to take on more players. You know, he had a couple decent shots. He had the one off the left-hand side where he kind of cuts in and out. And sure, he fired high and wide, but at least he took the shot.
Take the shot. That's
yeah,
right.
so I was encouraged by his overall performance today. And like you said, hopefully he kind of gets to kick on from that. Lovely to see Yuri back in the mix.
Played well though, looked
Yep.
like Yuri of old coming off the hamstring, and that's always your concern, right? But he looked great, and I think almost immediately he had like a line breaking pass when he entered the game that just went forward, I think, to Morgan Rogers and spurred Villa on to a half chance. But so I do think that there is something to the fact that the midfield is getting healthy now, and all of a sudden Villa are starting to look better. You know, you get back some of your best players, you look pretty good now. So I think that's exciting, and the fact that Tielemans is going to be available for the stretch run here and the stretch run of Europa should encourage and excite all of us.
Absolutely. Listen, we wouldn't be the lukewarmest of lukewarm podcasts if I didn't have one caveat to what you just said. And that is that I agree with you. And I've seen this take all over social media. So, we're doing cold water, I guess, a little bit early. Shocker. Villa lose 3 of their best players. They look awful. They get 2 of those guys back. They look good. True. Accurate. All the systems seem to work better when Yuri and McGinn, 2 of the most crucial guys to the system, ultimately kind of do it. You get a great performance out of Amadou Onana, very Boubacar Kamara-esque, and like it all seems to come together. Great. That does not exonerate Unai Emery from not finding solutions while those 2 guys were out. The fact that he didn't try to switch the formation to accommodate the players that Villa have, it's almost like these guys coming back in and making everything work again without changing anything, I think almost further damns Unai Emery for not making any adjustments to find the solution for the 2.5 months while they weren't part of the squad.
I mean, I think that's a fair criticism. It certainly, we've talked about it at length on the pod here that Emery needs to be a little more flexible, particularly when it comes to player personnel. Like, if you don't have the players to play the system you want to play, you have to find one that works. And that, like, it's no different than what people say about other managers in the same vein, right? You know, people said that about Amorim at Man United, where he just would not play a back 4, and all of a sudden you watch them play a back 4 under Michael Carrick, and you're playing players in position, and look what happens. Amazing. You know, Liam Rosignor is getting some of that stick now at Chelsea for not being able to figure out and not being able to change his approach and setup. So you see it throughout football these days. And I do wonder if some of it is the compartmentalization of football, where managers have now gotten players in such a role that it's this guy does this guy does this, and this guy does this, and that is how we do it. and nothing changes. So I think that maybe across the board there's less flexibility with a lot of managers in today's football.
Probably true. Honestly, that's a really good point that you make there. Um, Chris, I want to shout out a couple performances. I started to allude to this one before, so we'll start here. Amadou Onana, I thought was fantastic today. AVFC Stato had a really good tweet just kind of summarizing this up. So I'm going to read a few of these stats here. First off, he lasted all 90 minutes, 95% passing accuracy, 41 of 43, created a chance. He obviously had that header. 18 defensive contributions, leading the team, 64 touches, 8 passes into the final third, 100% accurate long balls, 7 tackles won, 4 clearances, 3 headed clearances, 5 recoveries, 8 duels won. Fantastic. Let the whole offense run the way that it needed to because he was back there cleaning everything up. What I also want to give him credit for, though, you and I were very worried at the start of this stretch run with the midfield of, I think his longest run in the Villa team was about 6 to 9 matches where he didn't have to miss something due to injury. I think Unai Emery and the management team have done a great job managing his minutes, where he's come out early in some games to be ready for other ones, so what have you. But he himself also, to figure out how to play his typical physical all-action style while remaining healthy when Villa needed him the most, we got to stand up and applaud him for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you pointed out his passing ability today because he crushed it. And I've been on that train for a long time, and I think that's one of the more underrated aspects of his game. He doesn't always execute to the level that I think he's capable of, but that is the sort of player that he can be. And if he plays like that, there's no drop off between him and Kamara. So if we have that sort of flexibility and depth at that position, that really is going to say something if we can manage to keep them both.
Yep. Jadon Sancho created a number of different opportunities. Obviously had the assist for McGinn, had cross to Ali that was just flicked away by Mavropanos, had the cross to Onana that was headed just wide. I thought he was fantastic today. One of his best performances in months as well.
Totally agree. And one of the things that I was most encouraged by was the way that he was willing to take on players. And that's really what I think he can do well in this squad, is occupy defenders that create space for other players. I know he'll want to score himself as well, but if you look at him in that vein where he can draw defenders away from the central part of the pitch and of the penalty area, it's just going to create more opportunities for Watkins, Rogers, who's ever playing the 10, whether it's McGinn or Buendia or whoever. It's just the more you can occupy, the more players you can draw to you, the better off you're going to be. And he did that today with his aggression and his in attack. His aggression in attack is what I meant to say there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the final one that I wanted to mention was Luka Dean, someone else who has come under criticism, too slow, doesn't do enough going forward, has kind of lost it, didn't deserve the new contract, whatever it was. There's been a lot of things kind of thrown his way this year. Thought he was great going forward, put in some unbelievable crosses, had a couple actually really good shots that almost headed towards goal, but also defensively as well. He had that one crucial header at the back post. I think West Ham was offsides, but obviously he's got no idea.
They would have been, yes. I think they would have been on that one.
At that one to kind of defend that header. So, I thought it was a fantastic performance from him, and nice to see him kind of be the Luka Dean for him.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought he played very well. His crossing ability is some of the best that we've seen. And I also thought Matty Cash played a great game. You mentioned him earlier as well. I love Matty Cash at his most
slow, but I think he really grew into it, and you see how important he is to the Villa side with his ability to get forward and create from that wing that, listen, we've said it a million times, he's not a right back, but just that you don't get when Lamar Bogart is starting there.
Correct. Yeah, 100%.
Chris, anything else on the game or larger implication on the season?
We can move on to larger implication on the season, yeah.
So another unbelievable weekend for Aston Villa in what it feels mean to say this after Villa put in one of their best performances of the year, but what has really become this clown fight of ineptitude to get this last couple Champions League spots. United draw, Liverpool and Chelsea both take bad losses to Brighton and Everton. Chelsea gets smacked by Everton right after they get smacked by PSG in the Champions League. Liam Senior already under a lot of pressure there. So listen, we got the result that we needed. Newcastle weren't able to gain ground. Brentford didn't gain ground. So, Villa now have a 4-point cushion on Liverpool, I believe, and 5 or 6 on Chelsea. Games are running out, right? 7 games left, 6 points. Anything can happen. Obviously, we've still got a big 6-pointer with Liverpool, but you feel a lot better going into this 2-week break. The team can kind of build some positive momentum around Bodymoor Heath because of that.
Certainly do. You'd much rather be in this position than any other. You don't want to be coming off of a 2-0 loss to West Ham, but going into the international break, playing your best football in recent times, at least, and certainly, like we said, this year, it's a good spot to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually did all our cold waters in the body of this pod itself. So we actually just wanted to go back to the Europa League, list out a couple really impressive stats, give Unai Emery and the team kudos for those that we missed in the last pod. So Villa have apparently tied Chelsea for the longest Europa League winning run with 7 matches unbeaten. And we did go back and check this since Villa had Eagles. Now, kind of weird because there's a lot more Europa League matches now, given the change in format. But still, hey, a record's a record.
And I mean, seven in a row is 7 in a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is now the 8th time that Unai Emery has reached the Europa League quarterfinals. People have said it, but obviously his tournament, he knows how to win this thing. And the other thing that's kind of flying under the radar that we wanted to make sure that we gave some plaudits to, Villa's reached the quarterfinals in every European competition that they've been in under Unai Emery. So we did it in the Conference League, we did it last year in the Champions League, and now we've done it in the Europa League as well. When we were, withering down there in 14th place, I know we've expressed a lot of frustration this year over the past couple months with where this team is at, and we've said it's the weight of expectation. You perform well, expectations increase, and so we are allowed to be upset with that. It is nice every so often to still take a step back and remember where we've come from, and to think at that point that we would have 3 straight years of European quarterfinalists at Aston Villa. I think we all would have snapped your hand off for that, regardless of which competition it was in.
Correct. And I mean, there is like the rapid rise is, I think, what needs to be most looked at, and the ability to stay at that level or around that level for 3 consecutive years now is impressive, especially given that, I mean, the rules do not favor you, right? Like the rules are designed so that you can't do this. So you have to give Emery and the team credit for that.
And I mean, so there's obviously the Big 6. And then I feel like people are saying there's kind of like a mini 2 with Aston Villa and Newcastle, right? That are kind of like these consistent gate crashers that are kind of alternating who gets into the Champions League. But look at the consistency of Aston Villa versus what happens with Newcastle. Newcastle get in, then they finish 12th. They get in, then they finish like 7th or 8th. So there's not that we're going to be in Europe every year from Newcastle. And hey, maybe you take that if you're a Newcastle fan. But to have the rules so stacked against you the way you rightly say, and maintain that level of consistency that other teams in your position cannot do, is impressive and something to be admired and acknowledged.
Absolutely. And it's the only way to continue to grow the way that that Villa want to grow, because this is the only way to make more money and to build the brand in such a way that there will be Villa fans in the United States and Asia. I know there are already, but on the scale of what we see with the other money-making clubs.
Absolutely. So that's kind of it for this pod. Obviously, we've got the international break. Chris and I got a couple ideas for some content that we'll release over the course of the next week, so we won't wait all the way until we need to preview the next Villa match. So keep an eye on your feeds for that. We'll likely do some sort of last 7-game prediction for the European run for Villa and their closest competitors. But we might actually also do one for the relegation race as well, because the results today were fascinating for what might happen there, and we'll just kind of leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's shaping up to be one of the most interesting relegation fights that we've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, it's been lovely chatting with you as always. I'm gonna go watch a little bit more basketball before this weekend ends. But can't wait to talk to you again about previewing the rest of the season. Until then, my friend, up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.